I'm here with Tammy Rae Walter from TammyRae.com, and Tammy makes beautiful glass from borosilicate. Now this is a special type of glass, and you have a great setup too for working.
Yes, for borosilicate glass we have a dual fuel torch, which is fueled by oxygen and propane. A little bit bigger torch than what you would use for the more commonly known glasses, Moretti, Murano, Italian glass, because it melts at around 3,000 degrees.
So it's got to get really hot.
Yes.
You also need to take some safety precautions as well.
Yes, you want to make sure that you're working in a very well ventilated area. So at home I have an overhead ventilation hood, and then make sure the surface you're working on, both the floor and the table, are items that won't burn if something flies and something hot hits it. So
you want to make sure that you're working on a concrete floor.
Yes, or metal surface. Protect yourself with an apron. Sometimes I even make sure I have sunscreen on my hands.
Oh,
it's
really?
just a good protection, good added protection from the rays that come off the torch.
Okay, good. Those are some great tips. And so tell us a little bit about the glass and the tools that we'll be using too.
The glass, again, is called borosilicate, and that originally started being made for laboratory use.
Okay.
And was made in the late 1900s, and it's a high heat glass, melts at about 3,000 degrees, and because of that, once it's cool, it's very, very strong, and it's not it won't break easily. So in the earlier uses for lab, they could go boiling water into a freezer and it wasn't shocky, it didn't break.
And so for this piece that we're making, it's going to be a cabochon that has a little screw mechanism in the back so that you can switch it out, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We call them ring toppers, and you can take them on and off different types of jewelry to wear them in different ways, which is really fun.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so let's get started.
Okay, we'll melt some glass. So when you light your torch, again, if you have an opportunity to take a class in lamp working before starting, it's usually a good idea. You can learn at home.
You can tune into Beads, Baubles, and Jewels and watch how to learn to
Absolutely.
make a bead on a key.
Absolutely. So today, again, we're going to make that cabochon or ring topper. And you always start with a mandrel when you're using, well, you don't always start with a mandrel. Sometimes they're off mandrel. But in this case, we're going to use a mandrel, which is just a way to hold the glass. When you're doing a conventional bead that makes the hole in the center, you're using more of a stick mandrel. This one's special. It has a little disc with a threaded part, and you dip it in the bead release. Bead release simply lets you remove the glass afterwards, so it's not stuck on there permanently.
And your torch is the blend of oxygen and propane too. That's just right for what you're doing.
Yes. I'm going to set that aside for just a second to get this covered. Bead release is like a clay-based product, which is really kind of very nice. They do make them synthetic now. This is a magical little part of our operation here. It's called a little hex nut. And here's an example for you.
Okay.
And you want to thread this on here. Now, I covered this with bead release because I don't want the glass to stick to this. I do want it to stick to the nut. I want the nut to be part of the glass.
So it's going to be embedded inside.
Yes, so I don't put bead release on the nut.
Okay.
So it's really important when you're going to be making one of these that you don't get this too hot. And normally I let my bead release dry and be hard in a hardened state. I don't do it on these. For some reason, being next to the flame on that disc tends to make it fly off when I'm working with it. So I don't let it dry overnight. I do it and then I work with it. So when you apply the glass, I'm going to first start. Normally you would heat the mandrel up a little bit first because you want it hot for the glass to stick to it, but this heats up so fast that I'm going to get my glass ready first. And this is a great color. It's a really pretty kind of a garnet magenta color when we're done. I'm creating a nice gather of glass on the end that's molten, and I'm going to get that nut it's going to happen really fast. You put it in the flame until it's a little red. There it goes, and then you start adding glass. And the reason that I'm adding the glass to it right away and fast is I'm protecting the nut from the flame. Once I have a lot of glass around that little hex nut piece, it's protected and it's not going to get destroyed.
You wouldn't want it to get melted in your torch flame.
Right. And I experimented for about a year doing these because this system was first created for soft glass artists, and I kept melting those little hex nuts because our torch is so big in boro. But if you just let it get to a glow and then quickly protect it in the glass, then you're good to go. Now, you want your little hex nut to be centered in the middle of your cabochon.
Okay.
Which, by the way, the cabochons can be used for this system, but I've also had people who are bead embroidery artists. They'll take them and they'll attach them to their surface and just ignore the little nut in the back and use them as just a
bead right around.
Yes, and also silversmiths will do that. So I'm creating a bit of a ball.
Yeah, we can see it.
And I'm centering it on that nut, and now I want it to become the cabochon shape. So heat and gravity are what you're working with here. I rarely use tools to shape things. So as I lower my elbow, it makes this molten little blob of glass. That's a technical term, blob.
Well, I can tell that you've done this a lot because it's keeping a really nice shape.
Yep. It's all about the practice. And always finish the piece that you start. Just keep working at it. Sometimes you learn the most from the pieces that start to go south on you. You just keep going and don't give up on it.
All right.
So now we're ready to add what we call frit. And it's just crushed glass, and you can get it in different grits. Like this is like almost like sea salt, like crushed table salt.
Yeah, it's like sprinkles.
Yes. So we added some sprinkles of frit, which is crushed glass. And it creates a little interest when we're done. The rod I just picked up is clear, and it's a little bit thicker rod. I'm going to create a nice gather, and you'll notice I'm keeping this kind of close to the flame because I want it to be kind of hanging out there, being warm. I'm going to start at the very top center and start rotating, almost like a little clay coil pot.
That looks great.
Going all the way around, and I want to bring it down close to the disc, but not, you don't want to touch it. So one really important thing with these is you don't ever want the molten glass to come in contact with the disc. You're keeping it up kind of high. I can turn my torch up just a little bit. The fun thing about this torch, it has all these controls, and I can make it really big, but it would kind of be overkill on this. That's more for making marbles.
You can tell it's really hot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun, versatile torch. So at this point, it's just a wait process. You sit and wait for the glass to melt. So I'm not sure if we have time to completely melt this whole piece, but the point is the clear glass is going to melt. Okay. You'll continue working it, and it'll melt all the way down, and without tools, you let heat and gravity bring it all the way down to end up looking like the pieces that you see there.
Okay. So as you're finishing, how much longer would it take to finish this?
We're probably about 2 minutes of melting time to get this all finished up.
Okay, let's have you do it.
Okay, all right, well, we'll just keep melting. Because one thing that's kind of fun in the studio is you have a lot of time just to sort of be thinking about different things and projects and listening to good music because you're waiting for a glass to melt. The next step, there's nothing you can do but be patient. But we can explain there's the really wonderful way to wear these different cabochons is the different styles of jewelry that you can use it with, because it comes on and off, rings and bracelets and pendants. It's a versatile.
Yeah, I think any type of interchangeable system is great because it's so versatile. And you know, one thing that we didn't mention in the beginning, I think, is that you're looking through a special screen. So when you're working for a long time on something like this, you want to be sure to protect your eyes.
Right. A lot of glass makers, you'll see them wearing dark glasses like you see laying on the table, but I use a screen, and it's called didymium, and there's 2 levels. There's a dark and a light, and it totally protects your eyes, and I can see the glass. The flame gets filtered out. So as you can see, this clear encasement once again created kind of a ball, and to bring it back down, and I have left them in this high domed. It's almost, and so it could actually be left just like this, and it would be like really a little, pretty. It would be like a marble sitting on top of your finger for a ring, which is Probably big for typing on your computer, but for going out to dinner,
yeah,
hey, you
big
go
night
with
out.
it.
Yeah, that looks
so,
good.
and this is important to keep rotating because if I held it still, it would just kind of droop because there's quite a bit of glass there. So this is one of those fun glass types that it will change colors. Like I can finish it now. It would go immediately into my kiln, which is really important. That is the stress in this glass is pretty high because this outside part is still really hot, but down by that nut is cooled considerably.
Down.
You put it in the kiln, it holds it at a consistent temp, and then there's a computer control that will bring it up to a higher temp, hold it, and then slowly decrease it all at the same time so the glass is
great.
consistent. Makes it strong. It's called annealing. So you wait till the glow is gone, and sometimes I'll hold it in a dark place under my table to make sure it's all gone. But you can introduce this color, like you can see it's sort of like little swirlies, like there's a little storm going on in there.
It sure is.
And bring it out at arm's length in your flame until the glow starts to come back, and it's going to turn a really beautiful, like a magenta garnet color. And the cool thing about the frit is it's colored glass. It's basically a rod like this. It's been crushed. And when you take different colors of borosilicate glass and you layer them on each other, there's a chemical reaction between the glass. And so in this case, around each of the little green dots is a little halo of ivory. And it sort of like smokes and fumes onto the other piece.
Looks gorgeous.
And it just creates some very magical effects. And the spectacular part of working with boro is that magical quality that you just never know.
Right.
So here we have...
So pretty. And now once this is cool, then this is when we would place it in the kiln, is that right?
Yes, I would put it in the kiln now if I were at home. It would go right in.
Just to get right in.
Yeah. So and then
beautiful.
And then you take it off when it's all cool and out of the kiln. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's take a look at this piece right here too, just so you can see that in the back is the little nut. These are the finished ones, and you can change them out onto the metal pieces on your jewelry. These are beautiful, Tammy. Let's talk a little bit about the bracelets and rings here.
Okay. The consistent component on each of them is the threaded insert that you see coming out of this bracelet. There's a threaded post, and then this goes onto it, and you can stack them. So
they look great.
And it just screws on and off, and they're very finely threaded, so you turn quite a few times to get them secure, so you don't have to worry about them falling off your arm. They're really quite secure.
Beautiful.
So there's,
and you can also layer some metal components together with your cabs and create pieces like these. And you also have some beautiful rings here, and those are the same kind of idea with the layered metal components as well.
Yes, yes.
All right, and I love the way that you can really see all the different colors that boro is available. If you take a look at the bolo, that has more of a pointed tip, and then the brooches also have some layered metal filigrees, and it looks like you've created some patterning in the top of the glass as well.
Right. You can, on a piece like this one, you actually press a knife into it, a knife
like
tool.
The one with the brooches up here.
Yes, and the one that has the more point on the bolo tie, you use a disc like this. It's called a marvering pad, and you marver it while the glass is hot into that point. Yes, you don't. There are molds and different things that can help you, but they aren't a mold in the sense where you press it and magically it comes out. It helps you guide it to create the shape.
Well, these are just beautiful. Thank you so much. What an inspiring project. You guys are going to love trying to make some lampwork glass at home.